move on to our next big panel. We have a conversation, an important conversation around strategic R&D alliances. And we have got some esteemed panel members from absolutely across the globe to share their insights on how the strategic R&D alliances are working, or maybe they are not, and where are the gaps and how do we fill those gaps, and how it is working and how can we further strengthen that. There are stories from both sides and we look at both perspectives. Great. So we have got and I'll have to introduce all of them, so hold on your horses. I am going to begin with Professor Rao as our moderator for the panel discussion. Right? Professor Koteswar Naik. If you all can come on video, I'll start spotlighting you also. Okay. Yes, I've got Professor Koteswar. Professor Koteswar is a distinguished academic innovator and mentor at Indian Institute of Management, Mumbai, with expertise in intellectual property and innovation management and entrepreneurship. He has made significant contribution to research, teaching, and policy development. He actively supports startup ecosystems and mentors aspiring entrepreneurs. Beyond academia, he is a passionate fitness enthusiast and a marathon runner, having participated in endurance events reflecting discipline and resilience. His holistic approach bridges intellectual rigor with personal excellence, inspiring students and professionals alike in innovation, leadership, and lifelong fitness. Thank you, Professor Rao, for joining us. We have next Jai Mrug. Jai, if you can switch on your video, I can bring you on the spotlight. Yes. So let me introduce Jai. Jai is the CEO of M76 Analytics, brings over 27 years of experience in data analysis and modeling with an early experience working on the manufacturing shop floor. He has been the pioneer of innovative analytic election analysis properties in India, currently at NDTV. His journey across 2 decades includes roles in numerical optimization in manufacturing, television programming, election forecasting, and even supply chain implementations. He has expertise in working numerical solutions to business problems, streamlining supply chain, development of KPIs, and early warning signals that correlate to business actionable, thus making a analytical solution directly business relevant. Thank you, Jay, for joining us. Next, we have Komal, and here you are on Spotlight. Komal Shah Mukhanwala is the executive director of Sulphur Mills Limited and Sumil Chemicals Limited. At SML, she oversees the research and development, intellectual property, and the introduction of new crop solutions across crop protection, crop nutrition, biologicals, biostimulants, and novel chemical entities, both in India and internationally. Under her leadership, SML has built a global patent portfolio of over 950 patent applications. SML has a pan India and global presence in more than 80 countries. She has been working with various stakeholders to address the climate change and promote both short term and long term sustainability in areas such as soil health, water, agriculture productivity, quality through advanced and innovative solutions. She is also the member of the council at the World Agricultural Forum, holding a bachelor's in chemical engineering and a master's degree in biochemistry from Boston University and an MBA from IESC Business School in Spain. Thank you, Komal, for joining us. We also have Professor Gurpreet Singh Jagpal. Let me get you on Spotlight. Yes. Professor Gurpreet is the Chief Commercial Officer at Aston University and highly respected leader in higher education with over 2 decades of experience driving institutional growth and internationalization and enterprise. He has led major transformations across universities, aligning strategy, commercial performance, and societal impact. His work spans global partnerships, student recruitment, innovation, ecosystems, and workforce development with a very strong focus on employability and inclusive growth. He is recognized nationally with an OBE for services to enterprise and entrepreneurship education. He brings a distinctive blend of academic credibility, commercial acumen, and values-led leadership to shaping the future of universities. Thank you, Professor Gurpreet. And we also now have Sachin Patwardhan. Sachin, I'm getting you on spotlight. Yes. Sachin Patwardhan is the professor of chemical engineering at IIT Bombay. He received his undergraduate, master's, and doctoral degrees from IIT BHU, IIT Madras, and IIT Bombay, respectively. He joined as a faculty member at IIT Madras in 1995 and moved to IIT Bombay in 2001. He held a visiting faculty position at University of Alberta, Canada, and Carnegie Mellon University, USA. His research areas include automated faulty diagnosis and nonlinear control. He's the fellow of the Indian National Institute of Engineering and recently served as the Dean R&D of IIT Bombay. Thank you for joining us, Sachin. And next we have got Rahul Singh. Let me bring him on spotlight. Yes. With that spotlight, Rahul Singh is the director of the BC Center for Agri-Tech Innovation hosted at SFU. He supports the advancement of agri-tech solutions for food security, sustainability, and climate resilience. Working at the intersection of research, industry collaboration, and innovation, he has over 2 decades of experience bridging academia, industry, and Canada's public-private innovation ecosystem across key economic sectors. A trained microbiologist and protein engineer, Rahul combines scientific depth with entrepreneurial vision to support challenge driven funding models and forge partnerships to translate innovations into the market ready applications. He holds a PhD in microbiology and is an alumnus of University of Manitoba, SFU, and UBC. Thank you for joining us, sir. Next, we have got Dr. Ravindra Vikram Singh. I don't see him in the room yet. Dr. Ravindra Singh, by any chance, if you're by any other name here on the group, let me know. In the meanwhile, I can introduce Nilay, our next panelist. Yes, and we have got Nilay joining us. Nilay is the CEO of Innovance IP Solutions, where he helps startups, SMEs, and innovation-led organizations turn intellectual property into the driver of growth, commercialization, and enterprise value. A serial entrepreneur and angel investor, he is also a partner at Good News Ventures and Novice Capital. Nilay built and exited a startup that was acquired by a leading semiconductor company in the Silicon Valley. During his time in Silicon Valley, California, he also led the acquisition of 3 additional startups. He has supported founders and startup ecosystems through Whitespace and Creative Destruction Lab. Thank you, Nilay. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Sachin. Thank you, Professor Gurpreet. Thank you, Komal, Jay, and Professor Koteswar. The stage is now all yours. Professor Rao, you can lead
Hemant,
the show.
sorry,
Yes.
Dr. Ravindra is also here. He was in a different name, so if you could do the introductions here, please.
Yes, let me spotlight him. I thought so. Sometimes it does happen. We log in and the name doesn't match us. So, Dr. Ravindra Vikram Singh is a dynamic, results oriented leader with over 30 years of research experience, including 26 years of industry experience post PhD. Known for driving business transformation, innovation, and value creation, his expertise spans R&D, manufacturing, and technology development. He earned his MSc and PhD from Lucknow University back in the last century, 1999. He began his career at Lupin Pharmaceuticals, held key roles at GE India from 2002 to 2007, Jubilant Life Sciences thereafter until 2010. He joined Sigma Aldrich Chemicals, affiliate of Merck KGA, Darmstadt, Germany, Bangalore in 2010, and presently he is serving as its director and head of R&D technology and innovation. Thank you, sir, for joining us. And now I can hand over to Professor Rao for taking the whole conversation forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Hemant. Greetings to everyone because you all are, at different places. So it'll be good evening for people who are in India. to the rest of the places as per the time zones. So greetings to everyone. It is difficult to manage in 45 minutes because we have a big, bunch of people who are there on the panel having expertise in R&D, academia, and IP. So the theme for the day is industry academia collaboration. Who controls the future of knowledge? So we are here to explore a deceptively simple but deeply consequential question: who controls the future of knowledge? Is it academia, the traditional custodian of inquiry and truth? Is it industry increasingly funding, shaping, and commercializing research? Or is it a new hybrid where data, platforms, and IP redefine ownership itself? So today's panel brings together leaders from analytics, agriculture, academia, deep tech, R&D, innovation ecosystem, and IP strategy. So each sitting at different point in this evolving landscape. So let me begin by inviting each one of you to respond to a question tailored to your domain and expertise, what you have had in the past. So I will start with Mr. J. Murg. So the question is to you. Your work sits at the intersection of data modeling and real-world decision making, from election to supply chains. So, do you see knowledge increasingly shifting from academia to algorithmic ecosystems owned by the industry? And if so, who should regulate or own these predictive truths? Yeah, over to you, Ms. Jay.
Yeah. See, what we have found working here, especially in India, is that the knowledge actually, ironically, remains siloed with the academia. The industry has not taken ownership of it, and there are reasons why those things are happening. First of all, industry in India, good, bad, or ugly, does not respond to taking algorithmic ownership or experimenting with new forms of research unless they are under some form of regulatory or competitive pressure. Right? So when we started taking our algorithms to the industry, that there are different ways to compute, the intelligent ways to look at data, we invariably found that only those industry sectors which were under regulatory pressure were somehow responding to the need to upgrade themselves. The rest actually were not interested. I mean, I could give you very contrasting examples. There was one set of industries where we went and they were actually waiting to absorb something more systematic because they were under pressure to either show up why they charged an interest rate or why was a transaction qualified as good or bad, and they invariably absorbed the knowledge faster. They internalized better computation frameworks, more intelligent ways of looking at data. While there was another sector of the industry, which is very typically the manufacturing sector, where they actually wasted our time. Frankly, I'm sorry to use the word wasted, but they wasted our time trying to automate some processes which they were doing manually because that was their first pain point. Now, this is the spectrum we need to understand when we socialize a new technology or a new method of working into the industry. At one end of the spectrum, you have organizations that are under regulatory pressure, competitive pressure, or they have a genuine visionary leadership which wants to experiment with those algorithms, not letting them be in the silo of academia. At the other end are companies of the spectrum which are actually just not having, they may be large in size. I mean, I could tell you, like, for example, one of the largest tire companies in India, I don't want to name them, but large in size enough, but just having no appetite to experiment. And when you take a new technology to them, they tell you to do some absolute silly automations. It's like, you suppose you owned a Tesla car, and you were a manufacturer of a good new electric vehicle. You took an electric vehicle to somebody and said, wow, you know what? That means you know to make a car. No, okay, open one puncture repair shop for me. So that is the other spectrum which we have seen in India. So frankly, these are our experiences. I mean, so to summarize in a nutshell, the silos are broken between the academia and the industry to experiment with new technologies or new management methods, new data methods, only when there is a visionary leadership or a regulatory pressure. Hard. Otherwise, that bridge simply doesn't happen, Professor Rao. It doesn't happen.
Okay. To continue with this discussion, the follow-up for this question is, if algorithms becomes the new knowledge producers, what happens to transparency and accountability?
Is that for me again?
Yes. It's a follow-up
No,
for
see,
you.
clearly, this is the actual conflict of interest which we try to resolve, and we fail mostly. Uh, Transparency and accountability sometimes then get system enforced, right? So, in organizations which have regulatory pressure, they need it. For example, we work with one of the largest foreign exchange traders of India, and they are under regulatory pressure to say that money laundering has not taken place, because they have to file it out regularly. So they actually worked with us to even get regular exception management systems for their own employees, and they were made to comply. So in a way, transparency and accountability was enforced because the system called for it. In many cases, visionary leaders, they use algorithmic capabilities like us to actually forecast a raw material price, to forecast when they should be stocking and not stocking. If the leadership is visionary, again, they enforce that transparency or accountability. The other spectrum, what happens is leadership typically delegates it downwards. Okay, you experiment with this new technology without realizing that the person who is 2 or 3 levels down actually knows the conflict of interest between what he's doing and what the new system will end up doing to what he's doing. So they typically nip it in the bud. So yes, there is transparency and accountability growth, but that 120% requires the blessings of the leadership for that transformation to happen. Otherwise, the reverse process happens.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
So now my question is question to Ms. Komal. So with a global patent portfolio and strong R&D focus, how do you balance proprietary knowledge creation with the need for open collaboration and collaborative science, especially in climate sensitive areas like agriculture? Over to you, Ms. Komal. You are on mute.
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Yes. Hi. Good evening. Good greetings to everybody. I don't know different time zones, but most of you in India, good evening. So, interesting question on the collaborations from an open innovation point of view. So, from an agriculture point of view, and given the fact that we're a company, private entity, innovating, developing new solutions in sustainable agriculture. Of course, the IP forms a core piece of this entire process. The R&D and the IP form a core piece of the entire process. But the way we look at it is collaborating with different partners across the world. So they could be directly large companies in themselves trying to take forward such solutions, or they are even distributors or retailers down in regional markets across the world. And agriculture is a big industry out there in terms of scale and size. Globally, the agri inputs industry is somewhere around 350 odd $1 billion. But the fundamental question that we are trying to solve here is, have a different input practice, which is much more sustainable longer term, and which is addressing better soil health, reduced on-farm emissions in terms of GHGs. So a lot of this is futuristic, and while everybody is trying to work on the climate agenda, the adoption rates take time. So what we do try to do is there's a lot of intensive work which is done in terms of trialing and data generation across different parts of the world, including India, and if we are looking at collaborations internationally, and then approaching those partners which will find this more attractive. So as you know, today internationally, there's CBAM has been brought into force in Europe, and there's going to be basically a carbon tax on different all kinds of inputs. So given the sensitivity around that, we are trying to work on identifying partners in this area to license these things out, or even create a business model where we have a 3-year plan with them in terms of trying to introduce a new solution which is meeting the sustainability targets basically. Then of course we know in Europe there are targets around groundwater safety. Some countries have been very advanced in terms of having much lower limits compared to what the rest of the world is allowing. So the WHO has set certain limits for groundwater safety. Now, some countries in the world, such as Denmark or Switzerland or Germany, have taken a very advanced stand and have tried to lower these limits much below what the WHO has today stipulated. So these are the areas where we find that we will be able to go and identify those partners, because regulatory is actually driving this change, and they see a need to make this happen from a long-term safety perspective, and it's an immediate need for them. So these are the areas and the countries where we think we would then want to identify partners. And of course, having the IP there, of course, is essential, because it takes a lot of development on ground to change a practice which the farmer has been using for so many years. So it's a different input practice, and that takes time to develop. There's a lot of trialing that happens before the solution gets implemented, and then it gets scaled. So that takes time. So these are the kinds of things that we are doing in terms of trying to take it to the market in a larger scale. I think it becomes challenging when the word sustainability gets used with every single input that every single company puts out there. So there's a lot of whitewashing that kind of happens from time to time, but we have to be very clear about what we are doing in a holistic way, and the data that we generate obviously has a lot to say, and the science that goes into making these solutions has to be made visible to the partners who have to potentially scale this. And if they understand that, then they see merit, and of course the economics behind it, right? So there are compelling economic reasons to be doing it. It's not just because it's sustainable. There's more profits for the people involved in this entire value chain, and that's how we also want to drive it with the partners.
Okay. So when the technology is transferred to, let's say in case of India, the BT cotton, okay, the patents, I think, won by Monsanto, right? So the licensing fees were paid by the governments, not the farmers. So in case of developed nations like US or Europe, is it the farmer bears the cost of technology licensing fee, or the government supports here?
Yeah, so see, this is actually here, the farmer is not going to be the one bearing the tech transfer fees, right? We believe the farmer is going to be the net gainer, so to speak, because we're talking of a subject like soil health. BT cotton is a very interesting example. But BT cotton is very specific to cotton, and it's about a particular type of, modified cotton. There's GM technology, and, in fact, BT cotton was brought in fact, the pink bollworm in cotton came back after all these years of research. So, we also have to see the life cycle of these products and these solutions, so-called technology that is being brought in. So, when we are talking about the product being transferred to another country, the cost is borne by the partner, not really the regulator yet. We yet want to see how governments will actually take this up, because it is a burning issue. It is a burning issue for governments around the world to be addressing groundwater quality and safety, because it impacts human life directly. So it's about how actively the government really wants to take an interest there, and whether the governments are able to see the need for such solutions, right? Many a times this is not the first priority for some of them. They have other priorities, and there are other things that they are trying to address first. So this is an area that where we are bringing in technology where the safety and the health is a secondary byproduct. The commercial benefits drive the change on ground, and that is why the partner picks it up and then promotes it to the farmers in that country or region or wherever that is. So that is what is the driving factor. So the farmer is not bearing this cost. Yes, there is a cost to innovation, and but like I said, the solutions need to be more profitable for the farmer, which will be one of the reasons for him or her to adopt a new solution.
Okay. Thank you, Komal. So we'll get back to you. Thank you.
Yep.
So next, my question is to Professor Gurpreet. As universities becomes more commercially driven and globally competitive, is there a risk that industry begins to steer academic agendas? Where should university draw the line?
Thank you. Great.
Yeah.
Great question, and great to be with you all here from the UK. I think universities in this space, internally, there is a lot of governance around ethical practice, moral practice that governs our relationships with industry and industry partners. So, despite some of the fiscal pressures that universities are facing, I think the checks and balances, I know in my institution's case, at least, that the checks and balances exist to ensure that universities are not taken down a path because of commercial desire or commercial will. And I think similarly, the industry partners that we are working with quite often come through long-standing relationships and long-standing links, and therefore these are industry partners that we have worked with over a number of years, in some cases decades, and there is a very solid grounding and understanding in terms of the nature of the relationship and the kind of the key practices that drive university industry engagement. And more so from a UK context and a UK environment, we have for over 10 years now, I would say, there has been a strong push in policy through government policy instruments to really enhance and encourage greater collaboration, greater collaborative research between universities and industries. And indeed, universities are rewarded and recognized for the work that they do hand in hand with industry. Therefore, again, there's custom and practice and policy guidelines in situ that alleviate any concerns that may come across in terms of unethical or immoral behaviors there in research.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Gurpreet. Now, we'll come back to you if time permits. Now I am giving a question to Professor Sachin Patwardhan ji. Sir, from your experience leading R&D in a premier institute like IIT Bombay, do industry collaborations strengthen India's research ecosystem or risk narrowing inquiry towards immediately commercializable problems?
So, very interesting question. Well, what I would say is that yes and no, there is a bifurcation in terms of which industries are funding research in IIT Bombay. What I find is that multinationals are much more proactive in coming up with problems that are really driving cutting edge research and funding that. They are not necessarily looking at problems which are Horizon 1. They look at Horizon 2, Horizon 3 problems, and that really drives the research. Not quite sure whether the research that is happening for them is necessarily for Indian ecosystem. It's for the global ecosystem. We are looking at problems that are Indian companies, barring a few exceptions, I mean, you can just count them on hand. The rest all are looking at only very immediate, solutions to their current problems. That is not really going to drive. Well, currently ANRF is trying to get them to fund through CSR and through many other innovative schemes, but that ecosystem development is going to take time. It's not just looking at the solutions. They also need to develop ecosystem to absorb those solutions and grow them in their companies, which I find is there in the multinationals. Multinationals have very well developed university programs. They have good R&D teams that know how to nurture Horizon 2 problems, Horizon 3 problems, and that's what makes the difference. So yes and no. Multinationals here are interacting more and more with IIT system, and we are getting really very interesting problems to work on, and a lot of collaborative projects have come up with good solutions that have gone into the industry or gone into the practice. Not too sure we can say that with the Indian industry. Even big companies, they're still looking at short-term solutions, some shop floor problem to be solved. Or, it will take time for the Indian industry to gear up to. So I would, in some sense, what Jay Mrug said in the beginning, I would echo with that. It's, the industry here, the local industry needs to not just fund, but they need to develop an ecosystem to absorb the research and grow it. That's what is really needed to make it happen.
Very, very true, sir. Very true. In recent past, I could see the IITs, filing more number of patents.
Yeah.
The last almost half a decade, the number is going multiple, folds, and could also see the commercially viable inventions from IIT system. And I could see I think a couple of months back, one of the professors from IIT Bombay, whose company went to IPO, raised billions of dollars. I think about $1 billion. I think.
Yeah.
Raised. So great, Professor Sachin. So I'll get back to you. Now I will ask Professor, Mr. Rahul Singh. So in public-private innovation ecosystem, who ultimately owns the outcomes? The public that funds the research, academia that develops it, or industry that scales it? Over to you, Mr. Rahul.
Thank you, Professor Naik, for the question, and hello, everyone. So I believe you're asking that when public or taxpayer are funding the research, then who owns the outcome of that research?
In public-private ecosystem, who ultimately owns the outcome? Is it the public that funds the research, or the academia who develops it, or the industry that scales it up?
So I think it a lot depends on what's the background IP is, for example. Like so in Canada, I think in elsewhere as well, when any industry and academic partnership starts, you initially focus on whether the original work is being brought forward by academia, and then it is there to be scaled up in industry collaboration, because often university would not have resources to do that. So in that case, it could be a spin out that is coming out through university or even from, let's say, external entities as well. But the focus will be on who created that IP. So that person certainly will own the IP. And in the previous session there was this talk about triple helix model, and I would we are into quadruple helix model as well, where industry, academia, government, and society all are engaged in the to basically realize the overall societal benefits from the research inputs. So the way I look at it, and we look at it here in Canada as well, is that research dollars that goes into, or public dollar money that goes into research, in collaboration with industry job is to scale, to bring benefits to the society. I work in the agriculture sector, so here, our focus is on. Just to explain you, my center is funded through government funding, based at a university, and me and my team works closely with farmers and end users of technology, and also with technology developers within the industry, space. So the focus is on overall benefits to everyone. So the IP goes to who is creating IP. They realize the benefits of the IP, but the overall impact of that, let's say, technological solution being developed is felt across the ecosystem. Because if that technological solution, for example, is increasing food production or developing a variety of crop that is resilient to climate changes, so that benefit goes to society as well. So I think we have to look at from a holistic point of view how we define the value being created through an IP, and then of course some bigger part of that will go to who is developing plus scaling as well. And there is distribution there as well, how who gets what, but overall benefit goes to, I think, everyone if the public money is coming in.
Okay. So, I mean, most of the academic institutions, they have an IP policy in place, right? So that really talks about the benefits, who will share how much, and in case of, the commercialization and all. So in case
Yeah.
of third-party funded in the private organization funds, maybe in Indian premier institutions, academic institutions, so there will be a agreement beforehand, which also talks about the IP sharing in case of revenue is generated, how much,
Yes.
what percentage and all. So I'm sure the same thing may be at our place at Canada also.
So in Canada, and I believe everywhere else as well, that every organization have their own policies. So for example, at my university, Simon Fraser University, we have inventor owns the IP here, which means that if I invent something, I it is my decision whether I want to use university resources to eventually file a patent or commercialize that IP, or I go my own route, that I create my own venture. I use my funds to patent it and then just completely own everything. There are other universities which require that university owns the IP. So independent of faculty member or researcher, any IP created belongs to university. Then university will license them it to either the inventor to make a startup and scale that up, or they can actually license it to corporate world, to further scale it up, and then they will get royalties. And in the agreements, who has the person who has invented, or there could be a group of people, they will get their share depending upon their contribution. So it all depends, who has contributed, where IP was created. So there are different models, and every model has pros and cons, I would say. But yeah, there's a very much diverse there. But scaling up, would all depend upon the licensing agreement. If an industry partner is licensing a technology from university, then it comes down to how much value they're going to create, and there is a lot of negotiations that happens
Yeah,
for long term.
understood. Okay, it's all depends on the the countries, and depends on the institution, university ecosystem. So anyway, thank you, Rahul. We'll get back to you now. Now I'll ask the question to Mr. Ravindra Vikram Singh. So, with decades in industrial R&D, do you see academia as a true partner in innovation, or primarily as a talent and early stage research pipeline? What do you, Mr. Ravindra Vikram Singh?
So thank you and greetings to all. And I can tell you this is a great question because I was hearing this from even earlier session also, that industry and academia collaboration. So this is a great question. Coming back to the the straightforward to the question, yes, we see academia as a kind of now as a powerhouse of knowledge generation, and it was in past as well also. And before I move to the deeper in this subject, I think I want to just refer Professor Sachin what he told, that multinational companies they are collaborating much or more, with the IITs. And Sachin sir, I can confirm you that at the Merck we had a couple of collaborative projects with the IIT Bombay. And one thing I can confirm you, obviously this project was governed or led by me here in India, but that's for a global, outcome, and I would say a global, perspective, global customers. So that's one thing. Coming back to the, state power to this question that how we see the academia, there's no doubt that now academia also coming up with, let's say, novel thoughts and novel research areas, and also the current policy support you look at from the government and particularly NAP also, so which is enabling, that academia to kind of, let's say, incorporate some of the, let's say, industrial, thoughts or industrial subjects, and being part of many, universities where I think I also sit in their councils, and what we are doing actually that, we are trying to help them also not only focus on the, let's say, a conventional or theoretical topics, rather they have to, design their courses or train their, researchers to focus on the, let's say, commercial aspects of the knowledge what they are generating. In term, I'm talking about, let's say, IP generation. And one very interesting thing I can tell you that, industry, we are also very fair and transparent here. We don't want to, I think maybe I'm hearing that, who will own the IP. So there's no doubt at all that we always, prefer that university own the IP. What we do actually, we want to definitely, own the licensing. As a commercial organization, we always want to kind of have licensed the product because we can commercialize that, we can sell that product or technology to the market. And obviously, if there is a funding from, let's say, industry, that's a fair enough. Meantime, we also, encourage academia to kind of give a, let's say, benefit to the innovators or researchers who has generated those knowledge, so in let's say form of the royalties, that. So it is, I would say, very fruitful environment where all these, let's say, functions, they're working very collaboratively. But yes, we have long way to go. We have long way to go. Is this answer your question, Professor Rao Naik?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Venkat.
And for all my fellow here panel members, I have to apologize and I have to move to another meeting which is happening with the global team now. So yeah, all have to excuse me. And really, I thought I will join this meeting. Whole time I would love to join to enhance my knowledge, but you all have to excuse me.
Thank you, Dr. Ravindra. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll catch up some other time. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah. So next, we'll move to our next panelist, Mr. Nilay. So in today's startup ecosystem, does control over intellectual property define control over the future of knowledge, or is speed of commercialization becoming more important? Over to you, Mr. Nilay.
All right. Thank you so much for it's a great question, and thanks everyone for there's a lot of knowledge and interesting points mentioned by other panelists. It's interesting to mention that control of intellectual property, govern, over the commercialization. I think part of it is, and we have been involved in IP strategy discussions with a lot of university academic and industry collaborations. One of the key things that we find is defining properly the foreground IP and the background IP and the future IP, right? And the background IP is the IP that is being developed before the industry partner comes into play. That IP should remain, and the rights to publish should remain with the original inventors or the researchers. When it comes to the foreground IP, which is being developed as part of the project, that should be allocated to the entity which could maximize the impact the most. So as the Dr. Ravindra mentioned, organizations often, like industry partners, often do not care too much about ownership. They care about licensing rights and commercialization rights. So if that's it, and sometimes, like for a university to own a patent increases their rankings or their positioning, and so if you're aligning those incentives, then you can build out a framework where the IP ownership aligns with the university where it suits best, and the commercialization rights and maybe the exclusive commercialization rights are assigned to industry partner. And I think for startups, that's where it matters. And in a lot of advanced, so I used to work in the tech transfer office at University of Toronto, and working more closely with the creative destruction lab and the startups created out of research at University of Toronto. University of Toronto is one of the most advanced tech transfer offices across the globe. I would say they rank among the top 10. And one of the things that I've seen firsthand is that they are very, they have a huge team to support this. It's not easy to do it, but they're very particular about what IP belongs to whom. And I'll give you an example. There's a technology for cancer detection using some modalities. They divided that into different therapeutic areas and licensed different therapeutic areas to different people. So, for example, something like skin cancer, lung cancer, you need a lot more R&D required. Furthermore, for that, they assigned that to to a larger organization like GE or Schneider. And then for therapeutic areas related to related to some of the other modalities, they assigned it to a startup which was created by the researchers. And in that sense, they kind of maximize the value of the IP. And so, and that's how they kind of did that. And it kind of worked out for a lot of them. And then later on, there was a lot of cross licensing that happened between all those entities, creating like an ecosystem, all centered around a core piece of IP developed and owned by the professors and the researchers and the university. So again, I think a lot of it depends on the incentives. And if you're aligning the incentives with the ownership of the IP, then I think the impact is the highest. And I think that is, and that's why I think the IP ownership becomes critical, because it becomes a means to achieve a bigger objective, which is aligning the incentives for all the people, the industry, the academia, the researchers, all of their, incentives are aligned together, and that creates the maximum impact.
So you want to say that the owning IP is more important than commercialization? Which part
No,
is it?
So what I mean is, so I think owning the IP or who owns the IP is the wrong question to ask. The right question is, how do we maximize the impact of the research or the outcome, right? And IP ownership is a tool in order to align the incentives so that the impact is maximized, right? So the questions, often we get drowned out. And again, I've spent over 15 years in industry academia partnership realm in Canada primarily, but what I see is there's this overwhelming question, and you go to all these autumn meetings, and you find this, discussion about who should own the IP. I think that should not be the foremost question to answer. I think ownership of the IP is just a tool. The question should be, how do we best align the incentives, or how do we work so that we can achieve the maximum impact of your research outcomes, right? Now, if for a university, the research outcome is, or the best outcome is publications, is greater research knowledge generation or research outcomes, related to publications or patents, or then that should be aligned with them. If for commercialization partners, if they feel that they are happy as long as they get their access to knowledge and their access to the license, they can commercialize it just through a licensing agreement rather than owning the IP, then that should be given to that. So that's why the IP ownership should be designed around incentives and maximizing the impact.
Okay, thank you,
I hope that
Nilesh. Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, that's true. So it's more important to commercialize and make benefit out of what we create than owning them and keeping in the locker, right?
Exactly.
So yeah.
Exactly.
So due to the want of time, I just would like to wind up this session because we are almost done with. So 6:30, there's one more panel session is queued up. So I would like to end up with a rapid closing thought from each one of you. In the next decade, in the next decade, who will hold the most power over knowledge? Those who create it, fund it, or scale it, and why? This question I'll leave to every one of us. And with that note, what we have heard today suggests that the future of knowledge will not be controlled by a single actor, but negotiated across power, purpose, and partnership. The real challenge is not collaboration itself, but ensuring it remains equitable, transparent, and future oriented. So with this note, I thank all the great panelists, all having great knowledge in their own domains. And I also thank the pitch matter on the team. Also thank Hemant for introducing each one of us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Over to you, Hemant.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And thank you to all our panelists. That was, as expected, we had the diverse opinion coming in on a single stage. Komal, Gurpreet, sir, Komal, Professor Sachin, Professor Koteswar, Dr. Rahul, Dr. Ravindra, and Nilay. Thank you to all of you for those for actually enriching the whole conversation with those diverse opinions. Let me jump straight into welcoming our next panel.